Welcome back to our second hour here on World Crisis Radio, the last program of the old year, being taped here on December 30th, 2011. Now, we want to look at the Republican primary. This week I did an interview with Bonnie Faulkner at Guns and Butter, KPFA, Berkeley, San Francisco. That was on Wednesday afternoon. It was repeated on WBAI New York this morning, 9 a.m. on Friday. You can hear Guns and Butter in New York City. And this was a critique of the austerity program put forward by Ron Paul, the Restore America program. And what I note about this is that he takes more money out of the social safety net for vulnerable people, the very young, the sick, the defenseless, and the old, get hit harder than the Pentagon budget. The structural Pentagon budget actually gets hit, according to his own figures. He takes more money out of women, infants, children, high-protein meals, the S-CHIP program. We're told that S-CHIP has been rolling along. S-CHIP has just gotten 1.2 million uninsured kids insured. This is news in the last couple of days. That program has expanded and is preventing a lot of kids in this country from childhood diseases and lifelong debilitation. And Ron Paul wants to cut that, of course, in the name of balancing the budget. He also wants to cut about 63% out of food stamps. That's much, much more than he's taking out of any military spending. And he also wants to cut Medicaid by a hefty margin. And this is what this is a health program for the poor run through the states, but it also defends the assets, the accumulated assets and family wealth of the middle class, because it means that people who have to put their parents in a nursing home can get some assistance. That's going to be cut 35%, almost $100 billion comes out of Medicaid. And, of course, they then get block granted to the states, which means they fall into the tender mercies of these reactionary Republican governors. Now, people have written back to me, well, if Ron Paul is not the answer, then who should you support? Who's your candidate? Well, learn something. Don't go for personalities. You went for Obama, look what you got. You went for Bush, look what you got. You went against Mubarak, and now you got Tantawi. Is that progress? Similarly with Ben Ali in Tunisia. How about doing something smart for a change? Organize for a program and measure the individuals, the demagogues, whatever they are, against the program, and then you'll also have a means of trying to get the politicians to stick to your program, because you'll be demanding something specific. This is the failing of the libertarians. They don't know what to demand, or what they demand is wrong. And it's also the failure of Occupy Wall Street. They don't come forward with a program. They come forward with their right to occupy the park. And then they're surprised when the right-winger Limbaugh and Hannity, when they take them apart and mock them and so forth. So the answer is not a personality. We will talk about some kind of an organizing perspective for 2012. But just in short, I'm also told that Ron Paul is the only candidate that supports the Constitution. Well, I'm afraid not. I'm afraid that his disagreements with the Constitution are as strong as anybody's. Let's just go through this. I'm thinking that's the famous scene in A Night at the Opera where the Groucho and Chico Marx are going through a contract, and Groucho reads the part, and Chico says he doesn't like it, and Groucho then just cuts it out, right? So what are the parts of the U.S. Constitution that Ron Paul doesn't like? Well, here in the preamble, I read that we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare. Oh, sorry, we just lost Ron Paul on that one. No general welfare clause. Ron Paul supporters will say, as soon as you mention the general welfare clause, they'll say, we'll tell you what that doesn't mean. Fine. It doesn't mean that people have to be on welfare. You got me. It's true. We don't want everybody on welfare. But then, dear friends, what does it mean? My construction of this, it means that the task of the United States government is to promote, foster, and help deliver economic progress, rising standards of living, longevity, increase of material and intellectual culture, scientific discovery, innovation, and invention. So there's one, general welfare, in the preamble that Ron Paul doesn't seem to like. Then we get to Section 8, which he says is the heart of the matter. Article 1, Section 8. The Congress shall have the power, and let's see what he says about this. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes. If it's the IRS, he says no. Duties. Then he says no again, because duties means import tariffs. It means taxes on imports, and he's against this. He wants international free trade. Imposts and excises. Well, imposts are another tax. Excise tax would be a luxury tax on, luxury goods. I'm sure he wouldn't like that. To pay the debts and provide for the common defense and the general welfare of the United States. There's that pesky general welfare clause again for the second time. Common defense is also there, too. There is a role for common defense. I told you I got a letter from somebody saying, how can you not be in favor of immediately zeroing out military spending? And he added a quote from Madison. Well, I wonder what Madison had to say as he was fleeing through the countryside and the British were burning the White House, because Jefferson, Madison, and Gallatin, who ran them both, decided that they were not going to fund any kind of military establishment at all in a dangerous world. This is too much. If you don't like the Pentagon budget, then you want to reconvert those assembly lines. But just to shut them down, I think, would be national suicide. Here's another one, Article 1, Section 8, Number 2, to borrow money on the credit of the United States. Ron Paul says no to that. He wants the balanced budget amendment. You can't borrow money. Number 3, to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the federal and the several states. To regulate commerce. Well, he's not really happy with that. The idea of regulation is something that he doesn't like. Let's skip to 5. To coin money, regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin, and to fix the standards of weights and measures. Now, the regulation of the U.S. currency, that opens a very big door to all kinds of useful things that we can do. I think Ron Paul is basically hostile to that one, too. To establish post offices and post roads, and that's got to be construed in a broad manner. Essentially, that means infrastructure. At this time, there were no railroads, there were no airports, there were few, canal lines. This is now the original Constitution. So it essentially means that the federal government has an infrastructural responsibility for internal improvements at public expense, even if they're only in one state. And Andrew Jackson is wrong on the Maysville Road. How about number 8? To promote the progress of science and useful arts with patents and other things. But the task of the federal government to promote the progress of science and technology. To provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrection, and repel invasion. Now, Ron Paul says that Lincoln was wrong to wage the Civil War, that compensation should have been paid for the slaves. Well, that's fine, I guess, for some, but the issue was secession. The issue was destroying the Union. And this is what the conflict started over, not slavery. That was added as things went along. Above all, I think Ron Paul would not be happy with Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 18, to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or any part thereof. The famous elastic clause, all laws necessary and proper for the general welfare. I don't see Ron Paul happy with that one either. Back in a minute.